Hey guys, Dan here.
And Frank, and we have a very special guest with us today, the great Matt Frank. Tell us a little about yourself, Matt. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you want to know about me and my work, look in the backgrounds of the lovely hosts here today. They seem to have smeared my career across their walls. Um, but yeah, so I'm an artist. I mostly have done comic books, and a couple of some Blu-rays and a couple of pinball machines and a number of things. But the main thing I've known for is doing Godzilla comics for IDW Publishing, and yeah, that's kind of been my primary thing. But I've been all over the map because I've taken all the things that I loved as a kid, and I've decided to brute force them into a career because I can't just enjoy things. I have to make it some form of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've kind of inspired me in a way, man, because back when I was like starting work back in high school, I kind of my movie time cut down a lot, and that's about when Rulers of Earth came out, and massive fan. That was my fill of Godzilla. I to this day I say it's my favorite comic series to this date. And during college I kind of got into blogging a little. I'm not a great writer. I never would have saw myself doing this right now, and here we are. We got all the way here, and yeah, I'm mind blown that this is happening right now. Honestly.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah. So last weekend, you guys had a big announcement with the Mothra Queen of the Monsters. Uh, how did
Yeah.
that come about? Like, was IDW looking for a Mothra thing, or did you pitch it, or was it a team effort?
It definitely was a combination of factors because you brought up Rulers of Earth, and that being kind of the big Godzilla comic that I worked on, and that ended in, I want to say, 2015, and after that, I did a little bit of Godzilla work. After that, I did like that one issue of Rage Across Time, and I've done some covers, and I did some stuff for the Japanese market. But then things kind of went away for a little bit. I don't really know the full story. I think there was some kerfuffle over the rights, because IDW, they do like the Toho Godzilla, the classic Godzilla, whereas Legendary does their own comics um uh, uh for the
The
Monsterverse. I don't know
Monsters, yeah.
why
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that. And I was doing some other stuff, but then in the last few years, I was like, oh, I think IDW is doing Godzilla comics again. I should reach out. I should like talk to somebody there.
Yeah.
And I realized that a big chunk of the editing team that I used to work with is not there anymore. And so I kind of had to reintroduce myself, be like, hi, I'm Matt, did this a lot. And, but no, like it was cool kind of getting, I was able to get to know the new staff a little bit, and they had some plans for stuff, and they were open to me pitching stuff. So I pitched, initially I'm giving you the whole rundown here.
Yeah.
Initially
Sure.
there was Space Godzilla,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Godzilla
Great one
Rivals
shot.
one
I really
shot.
enjoy that one.
Um, Thank you. I hope I'm coming through okay. Has my connection been steady?
Yeah. Yeah. You're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're good.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
I've had problems with that in the past. Anyway, but so after Space Godzilla, like that got a pretty good response, and so I asked, like, hey, can I could I pitch something else, and I definitely had other stuff to work on, but Godzilla's always been, the big one for me,
Yeah.
and so I was like, man, I'd love to do a mini series or something, I'd love to circle back around that. And I'm thinking like this will be something in like maybe 2025, it'll be won't have to start on it until well into the next year. Um, meanwhile, I'm friends with Sophie Campbell. Man, I'm giving you the long version.
That's cool.
No,
I'm only
no,
just now getting to it.
no, go ahead.
I'm like next to
And,
your video feeds, and I'm just like, all right, so this is my show now.
no, it's cool. That's cool. We're here for it.
So Sophie and I have been friends for a while, and Sophie is an amazing artist and writer in her own right.
Yeah.
You know, she worked on Ninja Turtles and Gem and the Holograms, and for a little while there, I was thinking like, oh, she's a big shot writer artist. She's not gonna. I'm like small potatoes. I'm peanuts compared to her. And then she was just like, oh my god, somebody I could talk about kaiju with. So
Yeah, it's crazy that her Instagram just vinyl kaiju, just all
yeah,
that. That's strictly what it is. And then her Twitter is her Twitter.
she does like she does like no social media like for her career and for her job. She
Exactly.
only does vinyl kaiju
I
stuff.
was like, it's all kaiju on here. There's no comic stuff, and like she's got an like I was super late to the Ninja Turtle game. I got the Humble bundle, and I've been catching up, and I'm like halfway through it, and I'm just up to the Jenica stuff where she hasn't turned into a turtle just yet. But I'm
Hmm.
like, she's a creator of that turtle design. I'm like, that's some resume there. I mean, those IDW turtle comic books, I can't believe I spent all that time and have not read them. They're really good.
Yeah, she's such a creative mind, and I've actually been following her for a while because she not like outside of her house, but like I've been I read like her glory book she did for Image back in the day, and I read and of course she did Gem and the Holograms, which is a
Yes.
really fun read. But then so we were talking, and we've been wanting to do something together for a while, something kaiju uh adjacent. And she told me one day, and this is a while ago, she told me about this Mothra pitch she had, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Like the she had like the bones of it, and I was like, not even the bones, she had like the two or three sentences, like the base pitch. And she's like, yeah, I want to, and I'm trying to give you the truncated version. She was like, I'd love to do this, and I'd love to draw it, but I'd love to do a little more writing as opposed to drawing, and just try to do something a little different. And I'm also working on Ninja Turtles still at the time. And then Ninja Turtles was starting to wrap up. And she was like, man, I kind of need something to do, and I'm over here like, it just like in my head, I was like, Sophie, we
You
should
got the
pitch
Mothra.
Mothra. We should just, I'll draw it, you write it. And she was just like, oh yeah, that could work. And so we pitched it,
But
and I was surprised at how immediately IDW was like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that. And it was and I am 100% confident it's like 80% of that is Sophie, just because she's such a superstar. But yeah, and so that's the long of the short of it is us getting the pitch process. And I'm sitting here sweating bullets the whole time, thinking like, Toho's going to reject it. They're not going to want to do it. There's going to be some rights thing or something like, oh, we can't do Mothra comics. It got to only be Godzilla. And it's just like, it has been
I
surprisingly smooth.
I know a lot of the times with licensing and stuff like that. I know like Ultraman's really tough, and I know Toho's really strict with Godzilla. And I know one of the crazy things that I wanted to ask you about this, because now we have a new kaiju in here, Antra, and you've also done Singora and Queen Magata back for Rulers of Earth, and you also did the baby in Space Godzilla
Oh
as
yeah.
well. That's you got 4 original kaiju under your belt now. I mean, how hard is that? Like, they're interacting with the Toho kaiju, so it's not like they're interacting with Monsterverse kaiju. You're like the first person to be bringing all these new kaiju, and then we had Zoospora in War for Humanity, which was another original kaiju, but great series by the way. And I saw you did that hardcover for them too.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got that around here somewhere because I can see it. in
It
this
just showed up
window.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just got mine in too. Well, thank you. First off, it has been very cool. It's so interesting because I think early on when the comics started, they really wanted to focus on the Toho, like the established Toho canon, because, at the time, these were monsters that nobody really had seen for a while.
Yeah.
Because the IDW comics predated the legendary stuff by like
Years.
3 years
Yeah.
almost. And so the idea that we could create and it's so funny because back in the day, with Marvel and Dark Horse, they had to make original monsters because they didn't have
Yeah.
the license for anybody but Godzilla. So it's funny how it's kind of in some ways come full circle. And I think that it's important to make new monsters because you really don't want to get tired of the old guard. But
Yeah.
because we've seen them and yet we haven't, because there are some monsters where they're only in one movie, but
Yeah.
then you'll have like 20 comics with King Ghidorah in it,
Yes.
and so it's a balancing act. But sometimes a lot of times it's just nice to throw in something new, throw in something kind of unexpected. And it's not the same as making them for like a movie, because if you're doing it for a film, you have to go through all these levels
All
of
right.
and most likely they're going to use people who are kind of their in-house people, or whoever works for the effects studio or have a contract with the effects studio, because they already work with the CG artists and they all kind of know each other. So you have guys like Jared, I'm going to butcher his name, Jared Kravishki.
Yes.
Sorry, man, I don't know how to say
Yes.
your last name. But and he's fantastic,
Yes.
but he does a lot of concept artwork. So, because and everything has to go through these layers of approvals, whereas with the comics, there's kind of this idea of like, hey, yeah, you can do a monster.
So they're really lax with it then, I guess.
It's just it's I would imagine that if one of them were to say get adapted to a film version, then there would be a lot more consideration behind that. But I mean, comics have had this, especially with like the Marvel cinematic stuff.
Yeah.
Comics have become like a tryout
Yeah.
place to like, let's try some ideas out, let's see what works and see what people kind of resonate with, kind of click with. And so it's been really interesting though. And again, it's been strange how permissive they are, because and it is because it's not their monsters. So you're not messing with their stuff. You make something new and they're just like, oh, is this something that's just going to get slapped around by our guys for a little while? That's fine.
No, but all your original monsters have been great. I mean, the Singura in the Space Godzilla was such a cool looking design. And the baby, was that supposed to be like Crystaloc from Unleashed, or is it just kind of a baby Space Godzilla? Or is it just kind of like an original design?
It's funny because I was so cagey about it for a while, and now it's just like whatever. Like I'll just say it. Because originally, actually, what's funny? Kind of brings things around again. That was Sophie's idea.
Oh,
Like this
really?
idea, because originally the Space Godzilla comic, again, I thought that the only way I was going to get this approved was if Sophie was helping me co-write it or something. Because again, I still kind of have this self-image, not a disparaging one, but this idea of just like, I'm just this guy who's just over here. I'm just drawing lizards and bugs apparently. And so but I was bouncing ideas off of Sophie, and she was just like, I want a space vanilla. And I'm like, all right, I'll see about working that into it. And so
that's the...
yeah. So I kicked that idea around a little bit, but then I was thinking like, number one, I don't know if Toho's going to go for like a literal baby Space Godzilla. They've gotten way more permissive, but at the time I was just trying to kind of play it safe. And then I was like, well, the problem with Space Godzilla having like a baby is that Space Godzilla would be a terrible parent. And
Yes.
and so it kind of through the writing process, but backpedaling a little bit, at some point I kind of hit upon this idea of like, I don't know if I can make a literal space Manila, but I bet I could make a reference to Crystallock by this little, because Crystallock is kind of like this spawn of Space Godzilla.
Yeah.
And originally, when I was developing the story, I was kicking around this idea that like these crystals were directly related to Space Godzilla, like some time travel shenanigans or something. Like it was way too complicated. And so this idea of it being like a spawn, but not like a literal child, not the same species, but
Yeah.
and then I just decided that's not what's important. What's important is what's important to me are these thematic ideas
Yes.
of how terrifying would it be if like your what you think is God shows up and he hates you and just wants to take all your stuff.
Oh boy.
That to me was more interesting than the specifics of where is this thing come from. And then it just hit me like he's gonna kill it. He's just it's just a battery to him.
Yeah.
So it's become kind of a meme now, and I'm very happy about that.
I mean, yeah, that was a great, and the visuals were just mind blowing in that story.
Thank you.
And we basically just got to witness Godzilla just doomsday a planet, like, I mean, Space Godzilla. Yeah.
Well, thank
Incredible.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, how did we get this new villain here, Antra? Was that a co-team design too?
Yeah, like Singuro was kind of all me. Like that was just me throwing stuff at the wall, and then I realized like, oh, I kind of made Vertigo from Primal Rage, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But with Antra is like a lot of that is Sophie. And I don't want to give too much away about like what Antra is and like all those things, but yeah, like Sophie had been wanting to do an ant monster, and we started kicking sketches back and forth until I kind of took two of them, took one of hers and one of mine. I just kind of mashed them together, and Antra like kind of evolved out of that, and she's going to be really cool. I think people are really going to like Antra. Like the way Sophie thinks about monsters is so fun. Like she doesn't really think of them as like smashing action figures together, which is fun, but they're all her children in one way or another. And so it's been really fun to work with her on that. But yeah, it was definitely a collaboration.
Yeah, and like I said, she's got this crazy vinyl collection. Like I couldn't believe it. I was just scrolling. I was like, "Damn, how many vinyls does she have?" It just keeps going, and I'm like, "There's no comic." And then it says at the top, "It's like just my vinyls" on her Instagram description.
Well, Sophie's been in the game for a while. Like she's been doing comics.
Oh yeah,
she's been doing comics to the point now to where I guess to her, she feels like she has nothing to prove.
Yeah, I mean, to be running the Ninja Turtles for that long is really impressive.
Yeah, it's really a treat to be finally working on something with her, and finally working on something that's this cool, because I'm part of the I don't want to say it was a problem, but part of the challenge with doing something new, like doing a new comic in the Toho universe is, I mean, I did Rulers for like almost 3 years, like 2.5 or however long. And I covered a lot of ground. I mean, not just me, the whole team, but we covered a lot of ground with it. And so when I was thinking of something to pitch, then I did Space Godzilla, and again, that was something where it's like, oh, I've got an idea, and it's something different, and
Yeah.
it's exciting. And so I was thinking about like, well, what else could I do? What kind of miniseries? And I was struggling because it was like I was trying to think of something new, something a different angle, not just like Godzilla against Mechagodzilla again.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
some of the other writers and artists who are doing those stories right now, they're trying different stuff. They're
Oh
trying new
yeah.
angles.
That's one
And
of the things I love about the one shots from Rivals is like you get to see a sample of different artists, different writers, and they all do a different take on the story. So it's a really cool way that IDW's been getting all these different stories out there.
yeah. Yeah. I think I answered your question. Or anyway.
Yeah. No. Yeah, you did. Um. Yeah. So part of this I saw was that the description says Mothra's fallen and the twins have to go back in time along with what was the mechanic Mira and her sister to try to get a Mothra egg from the Jurassic Age, and that the kaiju are just kind of unchecked on Earth current day. So it's going to be like a post-apocalyptic kaiju kind of story, kind of.
Yeah, kind of, or like we're seeing the beginning of the end of days kind of thing. Like, hey, it's about to get real bad. We got to try to nip this in the bud. And so the and yeah, and the twins, the main characters, Emmy and Mira, they're not necessarily like the traditional Shobijin, who do appear, like they
Yes,
are
yeah,
part of the story.
yeah. Emmy brings them, right? From what I was reading in
Yeah,
the
it's
article that
the
the
premise,
Godzilla
the
page. Yeah,
blurb. Yeah,
yeah,
I have to go back and I have to read that because I'm not 100% on what's been told already. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm really trying not to give too much away.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, definitely. We don't want you to spoil it for sure.
But I mean, what's out there is that it's these two twins, and there is this kind of a situation with the Shobijin, with the fairies, and it gets a little more complicated, of course, because once you involve time travel, stuff starts getting a little
Yeah.
wonky. And so in a way, it's also our tribute to the Mothra trilogy, because the Mothra trilogy played with time travel a little
Yes.
bit, and we're trying to expand on that and see what other kind of trouble we can get into. So it's gonna have like I think people are gonna really have trouble anticipating where it goes. It's gonna get weird. So and again, working with Toho has been really great on this because they're nowadays it used to be Toho was not they had to have a real tight rein on stuff because they didn't have much of a presence in the States. They didn't really have like extent like offices here in the States really, or really much of a presence. So
Yeah.
everything kind of had to go back to Japan. And so you had to like not mess with things too much. And now, they have a whole dedicated American office, and they have a whole staff now. And it seems like now they have people in the States who they trust kind of shepherding this thing. They can be a little more permissive with stuff, at least in specific cases like ours. So I'm, like I said, they've been really cool to work with because they've been just like, yeah, sure, go for it. So yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And then we got the Mothra Gemini. You got two pictures of that. Really cool design.
Thank you.
Looks pretty like a beefy Mothra there. I'm digging the design. It looks like it's going to be able to go into battle for sure.
Mothra Gemini. That's right now. That's our kind of our nickname for her, because Mothra Leo was a name that like fans came up with, and then was later like kind of retconned. And so
Yeah.
we were kicking around like, what is our nickname for her going to be? Because I don't even know if we're necessarily. I don't know if we're going to use in the comic. We might, but as far as we're concerned, her name is Mothra Gemini, and it's because there's a whole twin thing. And
Yeah. It's
but
perfect.
well, I'm glad you think so. Yeah, because we kicked around a few other names like Virgo and Libra, but those felt a little too on the nose. They didn't feel like they didn't have that punch. But the original base design was Sophie's. She just had this quick little sketch of Mothra, and it was sort of also inspired by, because she and I did some redesigns a few years ago that we just did for fun, and her design, mine was much more like eldritch and insectoid and very like weird. I tried to get weird with it, and she
Yeah, it's
went.
fun.
Yeah, thank you. And she went for something much like floofier and more like a cat, and
It's exactly it.
yeah, and so I really liked that. So I took that base concept, and I didn't change much about it. I tweaked it just like a little bit, just to kind of give her some I took this relatively simple sketch and just expanded on it, gave her a little more mass, a little more volume, and I fussed with her wing design to try to give it something that kind of looks like the classic design, but still has its own flavor,
Yeah.
with a little bit of Leo's wings kind of thrown in. I think people are really gonna like her. She's gonna do some cool stuff. Yeah.
Nice. And one of the to me at least, one of the selling features of this book is the hand drawn art. Like, was that your idea? Like, who was like, you're gonna hand draw all this and color it and all that stuff?
God help me. It's so funny because right here I actually have a brand new Huion tablet that I bought that's like all for digital, because for years I was doing the little Wacom tablet. So I'm doing this, looking at my screen, like it would actually mess with my, like, I'm not getting younger, so it was messing with my neck. And so finally I said, you know what? I'll get a Huion, a big old beefy Huion, and it's like, I'm like working on it. I'm like, oh my God, all my digital work is going so much faster. What's that? 5 issues of hand drawn only with markers and inks. So in the Godzilla 70th anniversary anthology, which came out earlier this year, my story in that, in the Shadow of a God, that story, I did all practical as well. I did it with all markers and inks because, and I figured it would be relatively easy because it was all grayscale. Like the only color in it was a little bit of red. Just to give it that little, it was the girl's little scarf was red, just to give it that little pop of color, and everything else is warm, cool grays, warm grays. And IDW liked that so much, specifically our editor, Jake, liked it so much. And he was just like, how would you be interested in doing like a whole book like that? Would you want to do Mothra entirely like that? And I was like, yes. Like as a challenge as an artist, it's a really interesting idea. From a practical perspective, like from a purely like, oh Christ, how am I going to do it? But I'm well into issue 1, and it's it's coming along, and it's like I just have to be judicious about where I use color, because you get into trouble when you start getting into the weeds on what shade of orange should I use for this, and then I can layer some neutral grays over the orange to give it like this shadow effect, and you get in the weeds on that, and then you get into trouble. So it's going to be mostly kind of monochromatic, but there will be strategic usage of color, like kind of like with the Godzilla short story. It's like this, just, and I actually have, let me see. I'm trying to see what I can show off because I think at New York Comic Con we showed off the first page, but it was kind of hard to see because it's a very small JPEG. But this is page 1. And you can see like it's mostly grays, but those little pops of color give it a little more dimension and a little more depth. So probably when this episode drops, I'll share this so that way people can get a better look at it.
Yeah, then the jacket's standing out.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. It's practical colors and markers and stuff are really fun to there's something about it that scratches that like kind of coloring as a kid sensation. So it's going to be interesting to see how I balance all of this.
Yeah, I mean the great thing that you said, it's fun. So you it's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be fun for you at least.
I mean, there's definitely going to be a part that I'm going to get to in the process where I'm just going to be like, what am I doing with my life? Just
like next time I'm saying no.
You're like, I got this beautiful tablet here, and I'm just got markers over here, and the tablet's like, what are you doing without me?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely going to be some stuff where I'm gonna you have to tweak certain things digitally, or do some or just straight up mistakes where it's like I screwed this up, so I'm gonna have to tweak somebody's eye is too far over, so I'm just gonna have to tweak that. But that's normal, that's people. They even did that back in the I had this this giant artist edition of the Mighty Thor, and which I believe was a run from the 70s or 80s. It was when they introduced Beta Ray Bill. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So and I was going through it, and these were like the super high res scans of the original art with like the lettering that they did by hand and everything, which I've done that. I did hand lettering at an artist retreat in college for a little short story I made. Oh my God. Like I will never take Photoshop for granted after that. But yeah, like here's the cover I did for issue 1. And you actually can't really tell. I my partner and business manager was like, you're putting that in a sleeve. Don't just, I just had it sitting on my desk like, next to like cans of soda and stuff. And she's just like, Matthew. But anyway, yeah, like you can kind of tell. So I actually used gold paint, like gold paint pens on these like sections up here, and you can sort of see it.
I can see the shine. Yeah. Those lines. Oh man.
Yeah, it was
Danny
really...
was saying he wants a printer of that if you put it on your site. He's like, oh man. He's like, I'm getting a printer of that if that goes up on the site.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll see what I can get away with. But thank you. Yeah, I'm real proud of this, and this is definitely more color that's going to be than what's going to be in most of the interior pages. But every now and then you'll get like a pow of color.
Yeah.
But
it's going to have effect. The color. You're going to use it for effect, which is great.
Yeah, I took that lesson from Guillermo del Toro because, after watching Pacific Rim and then watching Shape of Water, and like the way he uses color is so deliberate and so strategic, especially in Shape of Water. Like there's I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about color theory for a second. Not that I'm an expert on it, but like there's a recurring motif of green in the Shape of Water, but the specific, very sickly mint green, and it's always represents some kind of rot or something inherently toxic. Like I don't know if y'all have seen that movie.
I haven't
I
yet.
haven't.
No,
Unfortunately, I
no,
haven't.
that's the only
Uh,
one that I haven't
That's like
seen.
literally
oh,
the only Del Toro movie.
oh man.
And I know
I
it's
mean,
won so many awards
it's
too.
so good. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I
But
really like his work
yeah,
too.
I would say like so I don't want to spoil that, but yeah, if you watch it, look for like these examples of this kind of that like a little bit like this green up above
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Yeah, like a little bit like that. But it's a little more yellow and a little more like ugh. So look for that when you're watching it. But yeah. So anyway, that was my ramble about
No,
artsy
Del
fartsy
Toro. I would love if Del Toro did like a MonsterVerse movie, or I mean, he
Something.
killed it with Pacific Rim. I'm like, how are they not even Ultra? He's a big Ultraman fan. It would be, oh man,
Mm.
Yeah,
I
we had the luck of speaking with Chris Shawn, who's the voice actor of Ultraman Rising, and he was saying that
oh awesome.
opening sequence of Ultraman Rising was Del Toro. But I'm like, I didn't see that like advertised anywhere.
yeah. When they do the whole "Would you rather be a baseball player or Ultraman" scene, that was Del Toro did that.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because it's
had
like
no
these people
clue.
don't know who Ultraman is. You have to like set up like
Yeah.
explain
Oh,
like the specium ray and all that stuff. And
that is so cool. I had no idea. That's I need to watch that episode because or give it a listen because just I'm I'm Del Toro is a sort of person. He's a sort of artist and filmmaker who makes art for himself and nobody
Exactly.
else. And it's just the people who are lucky enough to fall into that category, that his same brain category, those are the people his movies are for. Because I talk to so many people who will just be like, they want to like his work, but they just can't get into it. Or there's some aspect of like how he makes films that feels weird and uncanny to them. And I think a large part of it is because, well, number one, he's not like American. He didn't come up in the American film industry necessarily. His sensibilities come from Mexico and come from being a weird monster kid watching anime and old monster movies in Mexico. And that's where his sensibilities for not just for, that's where his sensibilities for not just visuals, but for drama comes from. Cause it's all very like melodramatic. It's very much like, and I think that's why some people were kind of weird about Pacific Rim. Like I talked to some people who hate that movie. And the only explanation I can think of is, oh, he literally translated like a 30 episode anime plot into like a 2 hour movie. And you're feeling weird about that because you haven't seen that through this lens before. That's my only explanation I can think of. But
Yeah, I mean, Pacific Rim is kind of like just started this whole kaiju revolution again with all the movies. I I feel like it's personally responsible for the MonsterVerse happening. I mean, it's a big movie.
it showed what you could do with this genre with modern filmmaking techniques and with somebody who cares.
Yeah,
Like I think Cloverfield was kind of dipping their toe in where they're like, let's see, because monster movies were not in at the time.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure y'all remember.
yeah. I
Oh
mean,
man, I think I must have seen Cloverfield probably like 20 times.
yeah.
Like, oh,
What
like, and then
I,
like the theory videos on YouTube, I've probably spent like 20, 30 hours just watching those. Like,
I was like,
oh,
it's gonna be Godzilla movie, but it wasn't. My friends were like busting my balls because there's. I was like the Godzilla kid. He
Yeah.
was the other Godzilla kid. They're like, oh, it's not gonna be Godzilla movie. It's just gonna be a dumb movie. And then they were like, oh, this is actually a really good movie, but it's not Godzilla.
Yeah, it was again kind of showing what you can do with modern filmmaking and with the filmmakers who like care, with who I don't even necessarily think you have to be a diehard fan. I think that as
No,
long as you are excited about it creatively, you can make something really interesting. And it's rare, but it does happen. Like it was so funny because I recently watched, what's that YouTube channel, Pointless Hub, and he just did like a 40-minute retrospective on Cloverfield. And
I'm gonna have to watch that.
it's really fun. He's a very deadpan with his humor, and I know him from the Alternate History Hub, where he does like kind of these theory videos of like what would have happened if, you know, Hawaii had never become a state, or what would have happened if I think he made a joke about like, what if the Nazis won World War II, and he was just like, that's boring, everybody's done that. So but he has this other channel, and he's doing all the like the kaiju movies. He's doing because he did all the Transformers movies, which was really funny. He was just like, what have I done? And then he did all the Sharknado movies, which was real weird. And then now he's doing like kaiju movies, and he did I'm trying to remember. He did Godzilla 20. He did Godzilla 98. He did Godzilla 2014. He did Kong Skull Island, and he just did Cloverfield. And he was talking about how it was his favorite movie when it came out. And I was a kid in the theater, and I'm just like, oh Christ, I was in my last year of college. But anyway, yeah, I watched that video, and he talked about like the ARG and all that, and I was just like, yeah, remembering the interviews where Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams were just like completely contradicted all the ARG stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, the ARG stuff was all marketing. It wasn't like they didn't write any of that. That was like probably farmed out to a marketing firm or something.
Oh, definitely.
But, the marketing was crazy for that.
Up until their newest movie, I mean, even with 10 Cloverfield, and the ARG stuff's been really cool. I don't know why in the last movie they like canceled the game. Like pretty early in, they just canceled it.
Well, because it tanked. It like they dumped it onto Netflix and like slapped a bunch of Cloverfield stuff on it.
Yeah,
and I hated it. I
did not see that one.
I couldn't stand.
Like I didn't hear anything good about it, so I was just like, eh.
I feel like if you stripped all the Cloverfield stuff out of it, I think it would have been a little less annoying. But
yeah, I'm hoping that this new movie does better. But they announced it, and like you've never seen anything about it.
They're like every now and then there's like an article. It's coming. It's the real sequel this time.
I came up with a sequel idea when I like back when the first movie came out of like, it's a documentary. It's somebody making a documentary, and it kind of lays everything out. And then towards the end of it, it starts like the documentary is like, well, what is it? You know, it's like there are still questions questions left to answer, blah, 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 you know, doing my Robert Stack. And then hard cut, like an hard edit. And it's cut to footage of the monster of Clover, or a Clover, fighting another monster in like, I don't know, San Francisco or something. And I remember thinking that was the best idea. And
it's a pretty cool idea.
I don't know. It's hard because so much of it is dependent on that first movie. It's so in universe. Like this is an in universe item that you're watching. So you've got to like find that balance somewhere. But yeah, I like that first. And I thought 10 Cloverfield Lane was pretty good. I thought it was very engaging and very well made.
No, yeah, it was really good. It just, you know, it didn't, I guess it was in the universe. It was definitely in the universe, but it just didn't like, you didn't get that payoff.
It was a different feel.
Yeah.
Supposedly A Quiet Place was supposed to be a Cloverfield movie, but they said it was too good. It didn't need the branding on it.
I think the branding is kind of considered somewhat toxic now because of the negative response to Cloverfield Paradox.
Yeah. So supposedly they were like, you know what? We're not going to put any of the Cloverfield branding on this movie. It's good enough on its own, and I think it's probably bigger. Than
Cloverfield. It's huge now.
Yeah. I did see I'm sorry, I know we were supposed to be talking about other stuff, but I saw like a Reddit post or something where somebody was like talking about the science of sound waves and how it doesn't matter how loud you are, sound degrades. So if like, even if you're talking at like a normal volume, if the monster is more than so many so many yards to like several miles away, it's not going to hear you. So I guess the idea is that, but it was a person essentially having like this tirade about like how it doesn't make any sense.
It's too overkill.
Yeah, but I mean, but then there's no movie. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, it's a
No.
balancing act.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I
that's
think
like-
they did a great job with it.
It's like watching War of the Worlds, and you're like, so they mastered interspace travel, but they didn't know what a vaccine was.
They didn't think to go to an alien planet in environment suits. Like, what is this, Starfleet?
Yeah.
Like the
Well, you know, that's almost like, you know, one of the things that I thought about Rhedosaurus was cool is when the blood, everyone was getting sick from those ancient. I was like, that is such a cool idea that they put in that movie. Like, who
this
would have
extra
like,
layer of
yeah,
threat.
just like
Yeah.
this ancient disease comes with this monster too. I only saw that for the first time a couple of years ago, and when I
Oh.
was watching that, I was like, this is amazing. This is like a brilliant idea that they put that in there.
I mean, it kind of has echoes of that with Cloverfield, with the parasites. You know, this
Yes.
thing brings something with it. Like, I feel like there's stuff in the MonsterVerse they could really tap into that they haven't quite tapped into yet. Because, like, there's a hole in the middle of Hong Kong,
Yeah.
like apparently to the Hollow Earth, and I don't think anybody's living in Hong Kong right now. Like,
Yeah, they didn't acknowledge that.
yeah, we haven't really talked about that, have we?
Yeah.
And they like lightly touched on like a Titan black market and stuff with
Yes.
like
with the,
Mechagodzilla, but then that kind of got like shuffled away.
and
a
they
little bit.
they kind of go on with it with the hunted, with the whole poaching and everything, which I thought was a pretty cool comic too. We kind of got like a Kong versus Pacific Rim Jaeger basically in that one.
Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've read that yet.
Oh,
I've heard
sorry
about it.
Sorry about that.
No, I knew that was the premise. I just haven't. I have like 4 or 5 stacks of comics
Oh, I'm there with you, man.
where I'm like, I have to take like vacations to go read all my comics. Basically, I have to like go out of town and like find a cabin in the woods somewhere so I could just sit and read comics for a few
I
hours.
100% feel you on that, man. I just cleaned up my shelves. I'm like, oh, this. I'm just so proud. I had like a stack like this that I had to put into my tuck boxes. I was like, I did that backlog there. I'm like, I'm almost caught up. But then there's like another stack like this.
Oh man. Yeah, it's something like that. It's like you go to the comic book store and you're like, well, that looks interesting. Oh, I forgot this was out. I'm reading that new Transformers comic by Skybound, and it's fantastic. It's so good.
I've heard those were so good too. Yeah, and you know, Transformers went away for a little while. The comics too, I believe.
Yeah. IDW, like the rights, they like, I think Skybound wanted to, like, I don't know how it worked, but basically IDW, they finished their original run, their original continuity, and then they relaunched it. And I'm going to guess that probably it didn't quite set the world on fire like the previous one did. So that was probably, I don't know if that's connected or not, but then I know Skybound probably made a pitch or something. And because Hasbro wants to do their whole, like, their IP universe with Transformers and G.I. Joe, and
yeah.
Well, right now it's just Transformers and G.I. Joe, because the Joe comics are apparently in the same universe as the Transformers comics, but they're just different stories. So they're really good. The Transformers comic is brutal. Like, it is surprisingly violent.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check those out. I keep adding on to the backlog there.
Yeah. One more thing.
Yeah. What else was
I was gonna say we could definitely talk about something else.
No,
Yeah.
I had something and I lost it for now. Redman too. I mean, I got the shirt here. I love that series. and then they were doing the single issue runs. You went 3 volumes. Is there any plans to revisit that?
I get asked about that fairly regularly, and I had like the outline. I had the concept of a plan. Sorry, I had to do it. But
No, I do stuff like that all the time.
yeah, I mean, I did. I had like this. I had an idea. I had this outline for a volume 4, and I even is starting to design characters and starting to do like I was really starting to build it up, and just well, really, what kind of killed a lot of the momentum was 2020 was the pandemic and everything,
Yeah.
because they were releasing them in the States um in English just as the full volumes, and then 2020 happened, and so volume 3 really got lost in the shuffle. Like a lot of people do not have volume 3. And that's a bummer because I'm really proud of volume 3. I
Yeah.
really like some of the stuff that
No.
I got to do in it. And it ends on such a wild cliffhanger.
Yeah.
and and I just so the problem is that it is really is unfortunately a question of money. And there's just the original publisher in Japan is Phase 6, and they're the company that they put out the Godzilla comics in Japan. And I've worked and they were the ones that like I pitched Redman through them to Subaraya, and I was thinking like they're not gonna, there's no way, there's no chance. And then they were like, oh, it's interesting, yeah, like put together a formal proposal, like put together a whole thing. And I'm just like, okay. and and it was again, it was one of those things where it's like it's a comic and it's a like a C D tier character that nobody knows outside of like people who discovered the videos they were uploading onto YouTube.
Yeah.
And so they didn't I did not have a lot of oversight. I didn't have a lot of you know, they weren't like, you know, hovering over me very much. I didn't get a lot of notes. I got like
Yeah.
maybe 1 or 2 notes where it was like, well, this is a little violent, and you know, we don't want anything that's that violent. And I was just like, okay, I can cover it with something, you know. But other than that, I really kind of had free reign to do whatever I wanted.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was very gratifying. But you know, like I said, it just you know, but the other problem, so like I said, 2020, you know, came, and my publisher, Phase 6 in Japan, and I appreciate y'all bearing with me. I'm a little
No, it's cool.
stuttery today. I'm a little ADHD'd today. It's creeping up. Because Western style comics are really hard to sell in Japan. Like there are stores that carry them. Like stores will carry like the volumes, you know, they'll carry like the collected volumes and stuff, but like individual comics are kind of a hard sell. And so as a result, it was just, you know, and because, you know, the economy got hit so hard, even in the publishing realm over in Japan. So everything kind of contracted. And so now there are fewer places to sell something like Redman,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I think that if we brought it back, it would do very well. But again, it's like, I would have to spend, you know, several months doing 100 pages, you know, 5
Oh
issues
boy.
worth of material.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'm not writing it off because we did the individual issues.
Yeah.
But I think that company,
It changed like on issue 4. They were Behemoth for the first 3 issues, and then they changed to Sumerian for 4 and 5.
I have no idea what that's about. Like I was just as confused as everybody else. Like and you know, I guess they're, because I was hoping that they were going to put out Izenborg, which was
Yes, that's the next question I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, is if you were going to bring that over here translated.
we're looking into possible avenues for that, because Subaraya does have a more of a presence here in the States now. Like but they're really focused on Ultraman right now.
Oh boy,
And
are they? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and so expanding into other stuff is difficult.
Yeah.
They Ultraman just in and of itself is kind of a hard sell for people, because it's simple and yet it's not. It requires a specific kind of suspension of disbelief to where it makes it a little harder to swallow. I explained it to like, I think on a podcast or to like some Japanese friends or something. Like, the idea is that Ultraman, he's not like American heroes.
No.
He's what did I damn it, I had this prepped and ready to go in my head, and but that's been several months since then. But because he kind of has this specific aesthetic and the specific quality that you kind of have to buy into, it's one of the only things that I found a little weird about Ultraman Rising. Like, I liked Ultraman Rising, I really enjoyed it. I felt though that the quippiness, the kind of like the Spider-Man-iness of it was a little like, it's not really Ultraman,
Yeah.
But hey, I totally understood why they did this.
Yes.
And
For America.
right. That's fine.
Yeah.
I remembered describing it to a friend of mine, describing it to it was Hiroshi Kanatani who I worked with on Izenborg. I was describing it. He was like, I don't understand like why certain heroes aren't, like, why it's so hard for them to find an audience over here. And I kind of had to explain it to him about how, about the aesthetics of it, about the fact that like Ultraman's face is covered, or rather, his face doesn't move, and that's a big part of it. We kind of want to see the heroes' faces. That's why Spider-Man's always taken off his mask. And there's just, and it's also the fact that the audience has to buy that this giant guy in a latex suit that's just the way he looks. You have to buy that. It's like, I have to buy that this is not armor, this is not a suit. This is what Ultraman looks like, and you just have to accept that. And that layer of suspension of disbelief is very difficult for Americans, I have found.
It is, yes.
Difficult for Americans. Script, I wrote it in English. So
that's it. All right.
Just finding a publisher, finding a distributor,
Yeah, and then another thing, since you brought up Hiroshi Kanatani, Spectreman Heroes, really enjoyed that. And the way, that you did the intro for pretty much all the issues, and then you did the final Spectreman issue. And Hiroshi did a couple of covers, he did a couple issues as well. The way it ended, it definitely ended open, but I feel like Antarctic Press has kind of cut back the last 2 years on the Toku stuff. Like, even like I've been waiting on Koa Raptor, the trade paperback. I have all the issues, but I want the collection.
Yeah,
it's never come out. If you look on Things from Another World, it's listed as it's releasing November 2023, and it hasn't.
Oh boy. I mean, it's just, the comics industry is in a weird state right now in general. I mean, a lot of creative industries are.
Yeah.
And Anarch Press, I know them, I know them, they've always been very, very kind and very welcoming and stuff, but they're not, they don't have a lot of money to throw around. And so, so it's just one of those things where with Spectreman specifically, like, that kind of worked out, the way that worked out, of like how each issue was kind of introduced by Spectreman, that was entirely because of my schedule and me trying to like fit in the full, like the Spectreman issue, because originally it was supposed to be issue 1, and boy did I blow that deadline. Which happened.
But it was so great as a finale, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I was really happy with how it came out, and I want to do more with it. Again, what I would want to do with Spectreman is, I think with that one, I'd rather write that and then get someone I trust to do the art. Kind of like me and Sophie right now for
Yeah.
Mothra.
Yeah.
um, just because I have so much I want to do. I have so
Oh, I'm
many
sure.
projects, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
there are just certain things where it's like I've got to start prioritizing stuff, and comics are a lot of work.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I can
absolutely.
imagine. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
but
now you're doing it by markers.
yeah, yeah. Tell me about it. Man, I burned through those things, and I need to get the little refillable things. I just need to bite the bullet and do that. But then I have to find, what's the color code on this one? Okay, let me see if that one's in stock, and it becomes a second job at that point. But
yeah.
no, I'm glad you liked it. I'm really happy with how that came out. And Hiroshi and I are actually doing a gallery exhibit, a gallery opening in Tokyo
Oh,
the
nice.
last weekend of November. It's a Gallery 21, which they've had a couple of Godzilla gallery like events there with Nishikawa-san and Kaida-san, and we're getting to do like this P productions like Spectreman, Space Giants, Zaborger, Lion Maru, all of these characters from we got somehow got permission to do this. And so we're gonna be doing a little gallery event there, and it's very cool. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, okay, I've watched Spectre Man and I've watched Kaiju Prince. I need to watch the rest of these. Like I've seen them
Yeah,
in
I
bits
mean,
and pieces.
there's just so many. It's insane how many series are out there for the
yeah.
Toku genre. I mean, one of the things I liked about the Spectreman Hero series was that it showed like all these pretty obscure heroes that not many people know about, probably, and some of them didn't even get shows. Which was one of them was just like they filmed a pilot and it didn't even get a series. Who was that?
I think that was Hyolman. That was the
Yes,
Jaguar Man.
yes.
Yeah, I think I had to convince Kanatani-san to say like it's got to be Hyolman, the Jaguar Man, or something, because we're already in like uncharted territory here, man. Like I convinced him to make Co-Raptor Kaiju of the Wind. Like I told him
Oh,
you need to do that because it's going to be it's going to be a hard enough it's hard enough to get people's eyes on your book. But like, yeah, I mean all those properties are were created through P Productions. And and if I remember correctly, Shiro Sagisu is the person who kind of owns that nowadays, and Sagisu was the composer for Shin Godzilla and Evangelion and stuff.
wow.
His father owned the company, owned P Productions, and so I believe the rights kind of transferred to him, and now he kind of oversees it somewhat. But yeah, it was yeah, I'm trying to remember all the properties. It's Spectreman, Zaborger, Lion Maru, Tiger 7, Hyolman. Um there you go. And those are the ones we were able to do in that book. And then there's Kaiju Prince, the Space Giants or Ambassador Magma, and there's a couple others that I'm just like, you know, but
Yeah, the Space Giants. It's hard to find, and I bought like a bootleg DVD like years ago at a convention, and then like I got home, and then I tried to put it in, and it didn't work. I was like,
oh, I hate it when
I
that
was like,
happens.
and I'm like, oh, and I gotta try to find one online, and I still haven't.
Well, the Space Giants is a little trickier because it was technically a production by Osamu Tezuka. Like he was the one who created that, and so those rights have been kind of in flux. But I believe we can make Ambassador Magma like art for this exhibit, for this event. Like I did a little promo art of Goldar or
Yeah.
Magma, and it was really that, you know, he's such a fun design, especially when you kind of see how they translated Tezuka's drawings into the live action version, and the iterations that took were very strange, but it's kind of what makes tokusatsu fun, you know. And
Yes.
I saw a little of the anime. They had this Ambassador Magma anime. I
Oh, I
think it was in
didn't
the
know that.
90s, and it looks like visually very, like, it's got that real kind of crunchy 90s aesthetic where everything is has thick black lines, and it you know, everybody looks like an action figure, and it's really fun. It is the most long, it's like, did I write this? It's the most long-winded gobbledygook I've ever like I've seen in an anime. It's just like, because it's like the space, like a Master Magma, he's just like he's a giant robot from space, and he's here with his, like, his wife and his son that
Yes.
are also robots or whatever, and they're fighting I forget his name,
Uh,
Goldorak, or
yes.
no, something like that.
I forgot the name. I was on the back of the box.
Yeah, they're fighting that guy, and he's got monsters, and he's bad, and it's like, there's nothing wrong with like trying to add a little more depth to that, you know. But what they added was like some like past life regression stuff, and like, oh, Ambassador Magma is like the embodiment of the concept of good that's existed since before time, and the bad guy is the concept of evil, and they existed before the universe. And then there's this father and daughter who are like the reincarnations of both of them, and then they both die, but their spirits are still separate, but they're like the keys to unlock. It's this like, it's like some Scientology crap. It's like,
Yeah.
it's so convoluted. Magma doesn't even show up until episode 2.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I
That's
had
great.
to yell about that. Oh man. Anyway,
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
I don't know if there's anything else y'all wanted to talk about.
No, well, you've done a bunch of DVD covers. You did Blu-ray covers, Gorgo. You've done, of course, the Arrow Gamera set there behind Dan.
I see that.
Diamond. You've done stuff for SRS, Reptilicus. Is there any other movies on the horizon, maybe?
Nothing I can really talk about. There's a few that I'm actually like kind of trying to weasel my way into, where I'm just like, please, I want to do this one. And but it's all a question of the rights. It's a question of distribution, and who's going to distribute it. And I'm really happy that I've gotten the ones that I have, because I did the Gamera set. It was so funny. James Flower, who was my contact at Arrow. So originally he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I like your Gamera stuff." And I'm like, "What Gamera stuff?" And he's like, I'd love to, commission you to do this and do the set. And I asked him, like, well, out of curiosity, what stuff did you see? And he was like, I think I just Googled Gamera fan art. And and I think I had already made the Gamera Last Hope like comic by that point, and it had already kind of gotten like kind of grandfathered in as technically official, as they're starting as a fan comic. But everyone, it's so funny because people will be like, well, it's canon now, isn't it canon now? And it's just like, I don't know. It's the way I always describe it when it comes to The Last Hope is, it's one of the possible stories. This is one possible version of events if it was a 90s OVA. And because that was kind of my approach. But then after that, I did a few more things for Arrow, and then I remembered, because when it came to Gorgo, my contact over at Titanic, because I was already working with Titanic creations on their box art for their Gorgo action figure,
Yeah.
and I was like, so you got the license, like, do you have contacts for the license? And he was like, yeah, I can give you the contact information. And I said, like, I bet we could get Arrow to put this out, like do like a nice re-release or something. So I reached back out to James and I said, I gave him like the short version. I'm like, hey, we might be able to do, you guys should definitely look into this. And he was like, oh, our buddies at Vinegar Syndrome are already doing that. Do you want their email? And I'm like, okay. And so he put me in touch with them, and they're just like, oh, cool, you want to do the box art? And I'm like, okay, yes. Stop yelling at me. I'm just kidding. No, so there was just, again, it's one of those things that really kind of reminds you sometimes. It's like, wow, luck really is preparation meets opportunity. Like, it's just good timing sometimes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And who you know.
Yeah. Yeah, those Titanic creation guys are great. I'm looking forward to that Gorgo comic, but it sounds like it's tied up with Zoop, because there was a post recently in their Facebook group saying, when's this graphic novel coming out? And they're like, we're bugging Zoop to print it. We've been asking them. And I'm like, oh no.
I mean, that's why I often caution people when they start getting excited about something that's announced, where I'll have to be like, look, guys, there are so many things that can go wrong on the chain. Like, somebody could, like, that was part of the reason of what happened with, if y'all remember Kaiju Combat, Colossal Kaiju Combat, that whole thing. Like, one of the reasons that whole thing fell apart the way it did is because one of the people we were working with on the game died. Like, it just, if I remember correctly, I think he died in like a motorcycle accident or something very tragic. And so anything can happen, and then things will just fall apart. Like, and so, I'm definitely looking forward to that graphic novel as well. I will admit, I got very excited early on and was bugging them like, can I do it? Can I do it though? Can I do it? Can I do the whole thing? Can I do the whole thing? Honestly, I'm glad they went the direction they did, because I did not have time.
And it's really cool that they're tying it into their whole Soul War universe too. And they're making it like its own thing, and they were kind of like, all right, well, we're doing the Yongari figures. Like, ideally, we want to do like a trilogy. If eventually, maybe in the second one, he could go to Korea and do the whole Yongari Polgazari thing. And I was like, all right, that's pretty impressive. I'm like, let's see where this goes.
Love that. I did just finish the Polkasari, like the full wraparound box art. I just finished that. Like, I'm sitting there scrambling to get like just the main image done so they could make the announcement. Then I sat on my hands for a couple. I was doing other stuff, and then like we were coming up against it where he's Max like Matt. We need the rest of the box. I'm like, oh crap.
I think I don't even know if they have any more figures left. They were like down to like the last like 19 or something last I checked. I mean, that's a great design.
I'm really happy for their success. Like, so many times I'll work on a kaiju related thing, and it'll be pretty niche, pretty like something like Redman, it'll be very obscure, but I guess speaking somewhat cynically, you could say, well, I got paid and I'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But if you like it, if you're a fan of the things that you work on, turning around and being like, oh, people actually care and people like this thing in spite of whatever, regardless of who's, the artist, or, it's like, oh man, we're getting like you have to take a step back and be like, we got like a really cool Gorgo action figure, and now we're getting Yongari and this like slightly to the left Polgasari. Not that like what are they gonna, like, they've banned it in their own country. They don't have, and Kim Jong Kim Jong Il died, and so what are they gonna do? But whatever. I mean,
I think
Yeah.
Pulgasari's.
Mondo released a figure too, and they modify the name so it's like not exactly Pulgasar.
I know. I'm actually friends with the guy who like pushed that through. That was his baby at Mondo. I'm friends with him, and he's told me some funny stuff of like him kind of arguing about like what are they gonna do?
Yeah, I can't do it. And so I'm always just like, it's like one of those like like not franchise, but like one of those things. I'm always like so conflicted because like the story behind how it was made is absolutely egregious, and I'm like, oh, but people still watch it and they buy bootleg.
Yeah,
But I'm
it's.
like,
I got a
ugh.
bootleg.
I think that the people who worked on it are ultimately would I or rather I should say they would I think Shin Sang Ok I believe was the name of the director, the under duress director. uh
Yeah,
he I believe he probably would be happy to know, because I mean he came to the States and he remade it. He made Legend of Galgameth or whatever it's
Yes.
called, and it's the same movie. And but just set a European
Yes.
setting. But I think he probably would have been happy because apparently, like he while he was making films in North Korea, after all the torture and the isolation and stuff, he apparently was like, it's not so bad. It's nice people, nice to, because he had already kind of been. I mean, have y'all read his story or listened to like seen his story or anything?
I haven't. I know the general story of how like the movie being made, them escaping, all that stuff. But I never like looked at any like post interviews or anything like that.
Like there's a book called A Kim Jong Il Production that I do recommend. It
Oh.
is fascinating. It's a little harrowing too. Like because at the time South Korea was only marginally better than North Korea because um South Korea, I mean, it definitely wasn't as like let me rephrase that because we're getting into politics and stuff. But
Yeah,
the short version is that South Korea had a lot of really nasty stuff going on politically as well. And there was a lot of like nationalism going on. And Shin Sang-ok had kind of gotten himself somewhat blacklisted. I hope I'm saying the right person. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I might be talking about a completely different Korean person, but he, he had kind of gotten blacklisted. And so when he had gotten snapped up, yep, that's him, Shin Sang-ok. When he had gotten kind of snapped up, he actually, I believe, was in a little bit of a rut creatively. And not that that's like, not that it's a good thing. I'm just saying that like once there's a very very interesting chapter of the book where his widow was recounting their experiences of making films, and how she was basically like, look, in a way they were making the best of a bad situation. Like they were at that point treated very well and kind of were whatever they wanted was delivered to them, and they had all these resources at their disposal, and he was kind of getting back into the groove of making films again. And it's very complicated. However, some of the stuff that they do talk about, especially earlier in the book, is not for the faint of heart. He went through some really bad stuff, and there's some bad stuff in North Korea. Who would have thought? I recommend the book. I highly recommend it. So to me, I think Pulgasari is a little more about Shin Sang-ok than it is about some dictator who wanted a Godzilla.
yeah.
All right, yeah, I'm just that's definitely what I'm gonna pick. What was that called again?
A Kim Jong Il production.
A Kim
I
Jong Il
already
production.
have it up on my.
Yeah. I do have some slight beef with the writer, because I think he talked about Godzilla a little bit at one point, and he has some kind of not super flattering things to say about Godzilla, kind of that kind of dismissive, like, oh, it's not real art
Guy in
sort of
rubber
thing.
suits.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, it might have been edited out in later editions though,
All
because
right.
so maybe, I don't know, but that's my only caveat. Everything else is like fascinating. So
All right. Yeah, no, that's definitely one to put on the list now.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
I mean, listen to the
definitely.
audiobook if you don't like, you don't have to sit and read something.
Yeah, no, I actually have
Oh,
it
there's
pulled
an
up on
audiobook
Amazon. It's
version.
$1 for the audiobook.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm like, when I'm
there you
driving,
go, there you
that'll be
go.
perfect.
perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in on that. And yeah, Dan loves your Blu-ray cases. I have the Showa one. I didn't pick up the Heisei one yet. I have it in my cart. I have a whole cart set up. I'm like, all right, let's see what else I want. But yeah, that Showa cover that you did, we rave about it. We're like, that's what saved our Criterion collection. The book
Wow.
was a good concept, but a terrible way to hold your disc.
Yeah, it wasn't shelf friendly, and it's funny because I would be lying if I said that cover wasn't made a little bit out of spite, because I I didn't get to work on the Criterion set, and it was funny because that was and I mean, I'm over it,
Yeah.
but because okay, I'll try to. I'm going to try to give the short version. I really appreciate you guys just letting me ramble like a lunatic.
That's cool.
No, no worries.
So, I heard about that set through the grapevine, like just through chatter online and stuff, and then I heard that Sophie was involved, and this was years ago. So I asked her, like, hey, do you know anybody associated with the production? And her first response was kind of like, Matt, are you not working on this? And so she put me in touch, or rather she contacted one of the people at Criterion who had hired her, and he was like, oh, we kind of already filled up all the slots,
Oh,
yeah, which is, that's fine. You can't know everybody. You
no,
can't, like, Jeff Zorno wasn't in it. Bob wasn't in it. James Stocco, he would have made an amazing one, but you still get guys like Jeff Darrow and Art Adams, and Sophie herself.
the,
Sophie's is my favorite. It's the Destroy All Monsters with like the
oh,
little globe. It's so
yes,
cute. And that's my favorite. But anyway, and so I made that case as like initially as just like if you want something it's shelf friendly. And then I think people started saying, like, oh, thank goodness, the glue's coming undone in my set.
yeah,
Yeah.
So I still have my set. My set I actually use for autographs. So anyone associated with the Godzilla series from the Showa days, I get them to sign that.
oh, that's really cool. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's been very cool to be able to do that. But yeah, and those cases are just fun, and especially nowadays, because I don't know if we're going to be getting any more like physical releases of Godzilla movies, so, or at least of the classic stuff.
Yeah,
So you might as well take what you got
Yeah.
and put it in a
It's
nice collection, nice set.
yeah. Like on the Godzilla.com when they announced the whole -1 set, they were like, "Oh, sign up for emails to see when we release other Blu-rays and stuff." And I was like, "Does that mean there's stuff coming or not?"
I don't know. Everything is so streaming centric now.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, they will like put like DVDs and stuff up for sale, and I think it's like, it's like they'll find stuff in like a
yeah,
warehouse and just be like,
yeah.
oh man.
We got this. We found this under a shelf.
Well, they still apparently they
Yeah,
sell out. So
yeah,
good for
yeah,
them. They're giving the people what they want,
yeah.
and more power to them. I am
Yeah.
working on the Millennium art.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just I have this beautiful tablet that
yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god, this is like 20 times faster. Um, but that's the next one, and I'm gonna make it purple and green, or kind of
Oh,
a green,
nice.
like a maroon, purplish, pink, fuchsia, and
Oh,
I think that'll be really fun. So yeah, I'm glad you guys like him.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Sophie did tell me, Matt, I don't ever want to hear you complain about not being on the Criterion set again. You got to do the whole Gamera set.
Yeah.
And
It's
Sophie
true.
likes Gamera a little more than Godzilla, which is valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ninja Turtles, we need that Gamera Ninja Turtle crossover comic.
That would
who knows if that
be.
would ever
I
happen?
want to
That's like
do
a
it
dream.
so bad. Ugh.
It just makes so much sense.
I pitched it.
I know you have that art.
Yeah, I never say never.
Yeah.
But oh my
I mean,
God.
poor Gamera. I mean, what the hell with Netflix? That I enjoyed that Gamera Rebirth series. And I know they're doing that manga that you could read it online. I was like, oh, it's in English online, but it's like not really promoted at all.
I don't know, man. I think it's all like the conglomerate, the conflagration of Netflix, and Netflix barely promotes anything. They want everything to be viral. They want it to be word of mouth, and if it's not viral, then they won't renew it. And like in Kadokawa, their budget is, they don't really have the budget to throw at stuff like they used to, like they used to. So I don't know. I agree though. I 100% agree. Like I think one of the things I might have to do one day is spearhead like my own Gamera thing with blackjack and hookers, and just like we'll watch a lot of Futurama.
Hell yeah!
I would love to do that. It just like because the Last Hope, that comic, I did that because I was frustrated that there was no Gamera stuff, especially for the 50th anniversary back in like 2015. Granted, they did that short film, that kind of proof of concept. I did think it was very funny that people were like, "Oh man, so what? So is this going to be a movie?" And I think the director was just like, "No, not that kind of money."
I thought it was at the time too. I was like, "Oh my god, are they going to do Gamera finally?"
I think it would be. I think it would be amazing.
I just don't understand why they won't do more Gamera.
I mean, my theory is like Godzilla's unfortunately Godzilla's taken up a lot of oxygen in the room.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but the only way Gamera would have like a big proper revival is if they integrated him into the MonsterVerse, which I'm not opposed to it. I just like Gamera being his own thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to fight Godzilla.
Yeah.
But
everyone wants to see it, but I'm like, do you really need to see it?
It is one of those things where, and then it would be a question. Well, I used to say like, oh, Toho would never agree to that. Gamera is in Godzilla Battle Line.
Yes.
I unlocked him.
Yes. And I think they do they own the distribution to it now?
Gamera?
Like the Blu-rays and stuff.
No, that's all. I think it's all still Kadokawa. Okay. The Toho distributed the Heisei films.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah,
they just distributed it. They didn't. Okay. They were not involved in the production side, and and then like the reason why Gamera was in Battle Line, I think, is just because the connection with Netflix and with the Godzilla anime trilogy. I think that was it. Like, and they had already done Ultraman and Ava and all that, so they were just like, why not?
Yeah. So. Battle Line was still a pretty good game. I hop on there every now and then.
I have to remove it from my phone every few months because I can't.
Yeah, because you gotta play it live. If it was like an autoplay thing, maybe yeah,
you gotta play it live, and I spend too much time doing it, and then I wind up spending money on microtransactions, and I don't need to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Mobile gaming's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, my magpie distracted by shiny objects.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't know if Dan has any other questions, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was, I know you've been working on State of the
That
Monsters,
was
and I know you
exactly what I
got a
was going
lot
to ask.
going on.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, thanks for mentioning it. Yeah, I think. I'll talk about State of the Monsters for a minute, but then I'm probably gonna have to get back to work.
No, no,
um,
go for it.
but so State of the Monsters, yeah, that's an original comic. Um, it's something that I've been working on, kind of on and off since like 2021. And I announced it, I think, last year, and with the intention that I was going to do it this year, and then Mothra happened. So I'm just like, all right.
Yeah.
but I'm still picking at it. I finished the script for the first issue, and then comes the art, and just working on just got to grind away at it, just got to crank on it. And it's a really fun, I think, a really fun concept, that it's actually a combination of a couple of different ideas that I've been kicking around, like a few different projects that I wanted to do something with, but then I couldn't really get, like, it's like, this feels like it's not, this can't stand on its own, or this feels like it's kind of half formed. And then stuff just started coming together, and I just started taking stuff and just like, well, I guess this is State of the Monsters now, and this is State of the Monsters now. Because I mean, and the way I would describe it is, and I'm gonna take a quote from a friend of mine who, because she used this quote, or for a and so that's why I have to preface by saying that this is their own project. I should say this is their quote, which it's kaiju centric, but the main character really is the state itself, because I mean, Texas is huge, and
Yes.
you can squeeze a lot of kaiju into this one state. Um, I mean, it's like you're going to be driving 2.5 hours just to get to the next big town, and to get to one of the borders of Texas is going to be at least a 7-hour drive, depending on where you are. So, I mean, I'm centrally located. So, anyway, and so, yeah, so there's just like, it's this idea of like kaiju showing up in Texas, and turns out they like it here and they don't want to leave. And once you got them, you can't get rid of them. So, the federal government just decides, well, I guess Texas isn't a state anymore. Put up a wall. So yeah, so they just and it's kind of like spirals out from there. Like, what happens after? Where does this go? Um, so yeah, that we're gonna see about next year. We're gonna see.
All right.
Um, I'm working with Laguna Studios on possibly doing that one. They're the same people, different label, but same people that I worked on Miss Medusa's Monstrous Menagerie with, which is
Now,
itself
yeah.
a weird indie comic. And I'm hoping we can in some form continue that one as well. We're still trying to figure that out. But with State of the Monsters, like, I think that's something that my audience specifically is really going to like, and I just have to make it.
No, that sounds like a really fun concept.
Yeah, I of
Really
course have a
fun
lot of
concept.
Texas flavored stuff, like the one of the first monsters is a horned frog or horned toad, is a grumpy cutie. He just wants to lay in the sun. He's solar powered. He absorbs
Yeah.
solar energy through the spikes on his back, and he really kind of that's all he does. And then he moves around at night because he spends all day saving up his energy. And that's
Love it.
yeah. Anyway,
We used to have bearded dragons growing up, so it's like the same concept. We just see them basking in the sun all day.
yeah, very similar species. These little thorny desert lizards. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, we
It's
absolutely
really
appreciate
appreciated
it.
that you'd come over.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
It's
I enjoy talking about this stuff. I do want to preface by saying that a lot of, because I've got bees in my brain, sometimes I definitely will say something that will probably contradict something I said elsewhere. But I do my best to be like, no, I think this is how this happened. I think that's how it happened. So, but I appreciate y'all letting me, ramble
no, we
and talk
appreciate
and
you. It's
hang
an
out.
honor.
Oh, thank you so much. And honestly, like, I just want to say that, like, logging in and then seeing like all of my stuff behind you guys, like all the stuff I worked on, that's very gratifying. It really makes me happy to
the
see. So
the
I really appreciate
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
I didn't even like, I was like, oh, like what did I have? That's Matt Frank. I'm like looking, and I'm like, but and like I realized I'm looking in the back. I'm like, I missed stuff.
Ooh.
There's just like so much. You did so much media stuff, and I was like pulling them off
Oh
the
yeah,
shelf. I'm
even the
like, oh, I missed
Tremors.
that.
I forgot you did the Tremors also. I see that too.
Tremors.
Yeah.
I missed Daimajin. I didn't pull that off the
Oh
shelf.
well. It looks great, and I'll have to I will have to create. I've been working on my portfolio for my website for mattfrankart.net. And I need to get back around to it because it was getting so dense that I was like, what else have I done? So I'm having to like go through my archives and like being like, oh, when did I do that? Like, oh, I didn't put a date on it. And like, so,
Yeah.
so yeah, but I appreciate it. It's really cool to see like all my stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
No, it's awesome, man. We love your art, and I forgot to mention, you did the cover for Territory as well. So we really had to see that. We had a feeling Blake was gonna pull you in for that, but yeah, that was really a really great reveal.
He tried to thank you. I'm glad he tried to get me in on that, I think last year or way earlier this year, where he was like, and I had to be like, oh, this is not gonna happen, man. And then he's like, it's okay, we can wait until issue 5 or something. And then issue 5 starts, the Kickstarter starts coming around, and he's like, Matt, and I'm like, I did the thing where I'm like, oh crap. But no, but the timing actually worked out perfectly. I was able to, get it done in time for him to like have the big reveal and stuff. And I really like how it came out. I'm very happy with it. So, it's fun. It's fun doing these little like, just yeah, I'll do that. I'll do a cover like that, for somebody who's, indie comic and stuff. That's always fun. So I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's definitely like the perfect, like, issue 5 was like the one to do it for. Honestly, it's the perfect end to the series to have that cover. So
Yeah. It's
thank
exciting.
you.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you. I guess,
Is there anything
I
else
guess-
that you need to plug before we finish up? I mean, you got mattfrankart.net,
Yeah.
your Big
mattfrankart.net.
Cartel.
Yes. mattfrankart.bigcartel.com. That's my store. Yes. mattfrankart.bigcartel. With more, I've really appreciated the Feast or Famine being. I really appreciate that, and I know Caston really appreciates that too. She packs everything up. She got a box of stuff that's going out tomorrow next to the front door.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/mattfrankart. I do need to update it a little more regularly, which is difficult to do because so much of what I do is under NDA. So
Yeah.
I might restructure that at some point. But if you just, if you're listening and you just want to kick a few bucks a month, it does help. It's like I'll just be like, like it'll pop up in my in my PayPal or something. I'm just like, oh yeah, cool. I can get groceries with this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. My socials are, I mean, generally if you just Google Matt Frank, you'll find my stuff. Matt Frank and Godzilla or something, but it's like
Yeah.
Mattzilla 85 on Mattzilla 85 is my most consistent username on like Blue Sky and Instagram. And then I think Twitter is still Spankzilla85 for however long Twitter's around. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Yeah. The Big Cartel store was like, I was like, oh man, yes, I've been. The Big Cartel store was like, I need to get Matt Franco, and my wallet was waiting for this. I'm like, I need. It's like the most dangerous thing. I'll be like waiting for this. I'm like, I need card. Like right now I have a card. All right, add to card. Add to walk away from it.
That really, really means a lot, because for a while I was thinking like, there's no way, and but the timing worked out perfectly. It means that I can, maybe, I don't have to schlep to as many conventions. Like, I love doing conventions, but I think I hit my upward limit.
I know
and
you've been busy the last months. It's that season.
I think I can cut back a tiny bit, like just a little bit, like one or two of them. I can just be like, I can just stay home and I am. This is probably the last thing I'll say. I am exploring the possibility of doing like a virtual like con situation where I'll just take commissions and work on them via live stream, and and then push stuff for the push the store and all those other things, and just live stream it, do like a Matt's mini con kind of thing where I just that's all I do, just all weekend. I'm just live streaming, and I don't have to go on any airports.
Yeah, we would love it if you came to Kaiju Brooklyn in New York, though.
I mean, I haven't been in New York since. You know what? That's a long story, but I have a long New York story. But I got stuff to do. But I mean, I love, I do love doing cons. I love, especially kaiju centric shows are so awesome, and everyone is so supportive. And but it's just the travel, man. Like, I just did Los Angeles, and I think I spent several $100s just on Uber. Like, oh man, it was rough.
LA's brutal.
Yeah, that was rough. As opposed to New York, where you can just walk everywhere, or then go to take the L train or whatever. I don't know
exactly.
But I am doing Tokyo at the end of November, and that'll be fun too. So I'll be sure to post about it.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, definitely. We'll be posting it. Yeah, we'll be sharing you out, and thank you so much again for joining us, and I hope you have a good night, and can't wait for this Mothra series, man.
I'm excited. Thank you again, guys. Really appreciate it.
That's it. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.